For 15, this is the last bit of notes for this unit. We did the activity, or we discussed some of the issues about creating peace after Napoleon's reign. So that's all going to happen at the Congress of Vienna, a meeting of people all in Vienna, which is in Austria. The reasons they feel they need to meet, well, first of all, Napoleon has been ousted. When this meeting starts, Napoleon has just been sent to Elba. He comes back, loses at the Battle of Waterloo, and these meetings will continue. So it's a series of meetings, and the general purpose is to figure out what's happening in Europe after Napoleon, to come to some sort of agreement with peace, with governance. And the major countries that are negotiating are Great Britain, France, Prussia, Russia, and Austria. France is actually allowed to come to the negotiating table, but remember, Napoleon was French, so they're going to have to sort of take that into consideration. Clemens von Metternich, he is the foreign minister of Austria. He is sort of the ambassador. He becomes the leader of this Congress. He is hosting everyone. Now, if you remember, we've talked a lot about Austria this year and how they are, weaker and weaker in their power. But still, Austria has been allowed to host this meeting, and the Austrian foreign minister is considered the leader of that. And that's largely because of their geography. They are centrally located in Europe, in the middle of all this territory Napoleon had conquered. The major thing that Metternich wants to see accomplished is to establish status quo ante bellum. That means the way things were before the war. So not just before Napoleon, but before all of this chaos, the 25 years of fighting that goes back to even the National Assembly. So how do we roll back the clock, roll back the map? And he has three main ideas of how he thinks this can be accomplished. The first is to contain France, and we did the hand motions if you remember, to create a balance of power, and to restore the monarchy. So containing France. France got too powerful. Napoleon got too powerful. He was conquering too much territory. So take away all of that territory, not just the Allies, not just the annexed territories, but the places that had not been part of France before the Revolution. So rewind the map back to 1789. One result is that there are countries who now gain independence, like the Netherlands. We saw how the Netherlands became the Dutch Republic as a part in the 1640s with William of Orange and breaking the dikes and all of that, getting rid of Spanish power. But the Austrians still had some part of the Netherlands, and under Napoleon, he had conquered the Netherlands. Now that the borders go back to pre-1789 borders, the Netherlands has a chance to unite between the Austrian Netherlands and the Dutch Republic, and it becomes the Netherlands as we know it today, the modern borders that would be familiar to us today in 2013. Another result is a sort of a new territory that was formerly known as the Holy Roman Empire. Now it's called the German Confederation. These states with nobles and princes and all of these states, they all speak German, they have something in common, but they're all individual. Now they're not controlled by an emperor, but they're a confederation. Austria is less powerful, but still significant. But if you notice on the map, Prussia is getting bigger and more powerful. Prussia will play a bigger role. Second goal is to create a balance of power, making sure that a Napoleon situation never happens again. France had been powerful since 1648, since the end of the 30 Years' War. At the Congress of Vienna, they want to make sure, rather than having a single major power in Europe, to make sure that there are balances for that power, that the power is shared. France is no longer allowed to be the most powerful. They still are allowed to exist. They still are allowed to have a government, to have an army, but they are not allowed to be the most powerful anymore as sort of punishment for Napoleon. And the third thing is to restore the monarchy. Napoleon had conquered so much territory, had kicked out kings and queens, and installed his own family members as the leaders. Now, the Congress of Vienna says, let's bring back those royal families. So throughout Europe, royal families that had been kicked out or lost power are now brought back, like we saw in France with Louis XVIII. Looking back to these royal families who had legitimate power that had been installed for decades, they now go back. So this happens in France, in Spain, in some of the Italian areas, going back to a system of monarchy. So the results of these goals are actually pretty successful. One thing that happens is they say, okay, we've come up with these goals, we have all these ideas, but how are we going to make it last? So they create something called the Concert of Europe. And this will be a series of meetings, ambassadors from all of these countries who will continue to meet on a regular basis to make sure that they still are containing France, that they still are making sure that no country is too powerful, to create the balance of power, to make sure that these monarchs, these legitimate leaders, are in power. So that's actually pretty cool. However, one thing that's not as positive is the way the map has changed. At the Congress of Vienna, there's a bunch of guys in a room in Vienna drawing borders, taking the old map of Napoleon with France, annexed territories, and allies, and just drawing borders, not considering who lives where, what language do they speak, what cultural preferences do they have, what religion are they. So you can see here we have a whole bunch of new countries, new borders. But the representatives in Vienna didn't say, hey, citizens living here, how do you feel about this? Are you okay with these borders? So this will actually lead to more nationalism. We see this especially in the next unit with Italy and Germany, these two territories, or these two regions that were based largely on small territories, the Italian states, the German Confederation of States. And because of this, because they feel that they want more unity, more nationalism for their unique culture, they will eventually move towards independence, becoming actually Germany as we understand it, becoming Italy as we understand it today. And that has its origins at the Congress of Vienna. The last thing is that this system works. For almost a century, there is large-scale peace in Europe. 99 years. That peace will last until 1914 and the start of the First World War. So that's pretty significant. After 25 years of chaos and fighting and disagreements over power, for the most part, there is peace in Europe. And that is it. That is it for notes for Unit 4. You have a test coming up, so use these notes, use these videos, and good luck studying.